me again. You must be getting sick of me by now. Ooh, sorry about that. So, today, A Drummer's Guide 2. Let's talk about learning new technology. So this is actually a question from Chris M. Very elusive. From Instagram. So he's trying to get his head around Pro Tools, and he just said, look, how do you deal with getting your head around a new bit of kit? And I'll be honest, it's such a pain. You know when you find something and you just go, oh, I'm comfortable with this. It's like putting on a nice new pair of slippers, and then someone comes along and goes, so there's this new bit of kit that everyone's using. You're going to have to learn to use it. And it's like, oh, crying out loud. It is a pain, but do you know what? In the long run, some of the greatest things that I've done has come from having to learn a new bit of kit. And at the time, it can be a pain. In the long run, it's great. So the way that I do it is probably going to sound a little bit of extreme. In fact, I'll talk to you about specifically, Chris, I'm going to talk to you, right. Specifically, I'm going to talk about Pro Tools, because when I was 24, I was touring with an artist called Cher Lloyd. Pop artist, really cool. We were running backing tracks from HD24 via Pro Tools, basically. And the musical director of that band, we came to the end of the run, and we went and had a meeting, and he said to me, look, I think you should learn Pro Tools. I think that if you had this in your arsenal, you could turn your hand at MDing, and I just think as a musical director, I think it would be a great thing for you to do. Like, I'll help you out and all that sort of good stuff. Such a cool guy. And I was like, yeah, that's great. I basically sat down with Pro Tools for about 2 weeks and then just went, no, I don't, there was no pending reason. There was no, the gig is in 4 weeks, you need to know how to do this. It was kind of like, as and when, just learn it, just let me know when you have. And I was like, meh. It was this kind of like wishy-washy goal. And I'm not good with wishy-washy goals. So instead, Pro Tools, I do use Pro Tools, but for what I actually do, I use Logic for recording. But we can take other things. For example, Ableton. I've had to learn to use Ableton. QLab. I had to learn to use QLab, and a bunch of other stuff. HD24 I had to learn. So, but the way that I learn best, and again, slightly extreme, so apologies for this, I just have to have the impending doom of a deadline. So for the HD24 I learned on the Cher Lloyd gig. That was a day. I had a day to learn that. That was scary, but it got done. So when it came to Ableton, that was when I had to musically direct Tricky. And that was, I've just realised I've got my dates completely wrong. Cher Lloyd was in 2012, Tricky was in 2011, because we had a month to put together a whole show on Ableton, because that was the only program that was the right program to use for the way that he runs his show. So had a month to learn that and program up the whole thing, which was just so stressful. But I learned Ableton consequently, and I still use Ableton to this day. We use it on the Kim Wilde shows, also on the Howard Jones shows. So Ableton, aces. QLab, man, QLab, I love QLab. That was a learning curve, because I had decided to put on my own show, had already booked the venue, and just had all these ideas floating around in my head. And I was like, well, how am I going to execute that? Oh, I know, I'll use QLab. I'd used it once before in 2013 with an artist called Amelia Matiku, and it seemed really cool. And I was like, oh, that will probably work, because it does audio, visuals, lights. It kind of covers all the bases. Amazing. So I was just like, okay, great, I'm using it. I don't know how to use it. I better learn how to use it, because the date is booked, the venue is booked, the promo's already out, people are coming to this show. Whether it's happening or not, people are going to turn up, so I better learn it. So I feel like the best way to learn something is definitely with, for me, a strict deadline that I hopefully can't get out of. But again, consequently, it just leads to really cool things like QLab I now use in my masterclasses, which is so cool. Ableton, as I said, we use it on the road all the time. HD24, not that many people are using it, but it's really nice when it does come up that you go, oh yeah, I can do that as well. In fact, I used it a couple of years later on something else. So yeah, I think hard deadlines are good. The caveat that I want to say about this as well, because I know, Chris, you're using a Tascam for what you want to be doing, and you're saying, Pro Tools, if your Tascam does what you want it to do and what you need to do for your music and your career or whatever journey, whatever trajectory you're going on, just keep using it. Because like I said, I use Logic for my recording, and I often speak to people that sort of go, well, you should know how to use Pro Tools. And I'm like, well, I kind of do, and I kind of can if I need to. But the point is that for what I'm using the program for, I'm using it for a very specific thing. And I know how to do that very specific thing in Logic effectively and quickly. So why would I spend my time learning a whole new program just to do exactly the same thing? It seems ludicrous. Like, I'd rather not have that stress, that headache. And as I say, if I do suddenly need to use Pro Tools for some reason, I will learn it as I go, as I need it. And that will be the best way for me to learn anyway, because it's pressure. Good with pressure. Actually, I'm terrible with pressure, but it does make me get things done. So, Chris, I hope this helps. Basically, give yourself some sort of impending doom deadline. Sounds so dark and sinister. It works, but you probably will be stressed, so I apologise in advance if you do take on this tact. I kind of feel bad now. Maybe you shouldn't be doing it. Anyway, do what you need to do, but if you have something that already does what you want to do and you know how to use it well, stick with that. Life's too short. The thing is that new things are coming out all the time. Some of them won't even stick around. Some of them will. Pro Tools is a good example. That absolutely has, of course, industry standard, fine. But it depends what you're using it for. Logic does a lot of the same things. Cubase does a lot of the same things. What's another one? Studio One does a lot of the same things. Even Ableton does a lot of the same things. So just find what works for you, and as long as you can get the job done, then please don't beat yourself up about not knowing the newest technology. Just functional. It needs to be functional. Don't just do it because someone has said. Do it because you feel like you need that skill in your life. Yeah. I hope that helps. Be nice to yourself. I need to be nicer to myself with these doom-filled deadlines. But anyway, right, I'm going to love you. I'm going to leave you. I hope you're having a lovely, lovely day. If you have any questions yourself or you'd like me to cover any subjects, then email me at info@adrummersguide2. And yes, I shall see you next week for another subject. Oh, and subscribe. Yeah, that's good. All right. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.